I have in my hands the list of journalists who secretly took a $61 million pre-election payoff from Justin Trudeau. Trudeau shoveled it out the door to them just before he called the election, and he kept the list a secret until now. You can see the list for yourself at rebelinvestigates.com. Seriously, go there and take a look. The list is 29 pages long. I've printed it off here. If I've counted right, there are 49 names on each page, and it's 29 pages long. By my math, that means there's almost 1,500 news media who took the bribe. It's actually more than that because this doesn't list individual reporters, but rather companies. So you can see that Maclean's magazine was given a $313,000 pre-election top-up by Trudeau, one of the largest. They don't list all the individual prostitutes at Maclean's. They just name the brothel. Oh, I'm sorry, is that too rude for you? I apologize. What would you call it instead that's more accurate? A bribe, a payoff, a kickback, an insurance policy? How about a special pre-election gratuity paid to the very journalists who were about to cover Trudeau's election campaign so lovingly? $61 million can ensure that it was loving. I mean, if someone gave you $61 million or even just the $313,000 that Maclean's got, you'd probably love them or at least fake it. Prostitution is the world's oldest profession, and journalists are not known for their high morals. We didn't hear about these secret payments from any of the nearly 1,500 news media who received them, did we? Think about that for a moment. They had the news. They were in on the news. They were in the middle of it. They didn't dare share the news with you, their readers. They deliberately kept the news a secret from you because it showed that they were in Trudeau's pocket, and they didn't want you to know that because they know you already don't trust the media very much, and this would make it much, much worse. I mean, taking a government bailout at any time is a disaster for the reputation of the independence of the press. If you have an adjective in front of the word journalist, like government journalist, it just completely changes the meaning of the word. We all know that you can't trust Trudeau's CBC state broadcaster because of that, but now he's injected himself into nearly 1,500 other private sector media, if you can even still call them that. I won't call these 1,500 companies corporate welfare bums because all that means is they're mooches. Now, of course, they are that. And of course, it is gross giving these mooches $61 million of public money in the middle of a pandemic as if they're a high priority. But it's not just the shocking amount of money. Trudeau spends more than $1 billion a day. It's that he has corrupted the media. It's like what he tried to do when Jody Wilson-Raybould stopped him. He was trying to corrupt the criminal prosecution of his friends at SNC-Lavalin, and she wouldn't let it happen on her watch. 1,500 news media were all too happy to let it happen on their watch. They're part of it. It's an inside job. They took the dough. We only heard about this from one of the few media in Canada who were not on this 29-page list, a small reader-supported news outlet in Ottawa called Blacklock's Reporter. They're not cheap to subscribe. If I recall, their annual subscription's about $300, but it's worth every penny to me. They break all sorts of news, and we have to support them because they're one of the few truth tellers out there who aren't in Trudeau's pocket. Anyways, here's what Blacklock's report last month. Now the subsidies are secret. Heritage Minister Stephen Guilbeault's department refuses to name publishers awarded nearly $61 million in pre-election emergency relief. The grants were to ensure readers receive timely information they require from their government, Guilbeault wrote in a letter to MPs. I love that. If they didn't give $61 million to their friends in the media on the eve of an election, maybe those reporters wouldn't report the news in a timely way. Is that what they're arguing? I don't even get it. I'll read one more line. The letter disclosed unnamed publishers received $60.8 million as emergency support through an existing Heritage Department program called Aid to Publishers. The grants were in addition to annual subsidies already paid, including proceeds from a $595 million media bailout approved by Parliament in 2018. So this latest payout is on top of the $600 million. They plan to keep the name secret, though, until after the election. Well, when we saw that Blacklock story, we immediately filed an access to information request to the government. And to my surprise, the government actually answered us in the required 30 days. That is very rare. Trudeau has sometimes delayed access to information requests by as much as 5 years when he's really embarrassed about something. So maybe there's someone in the bureaucracy who's as disgusted as we are by this massive bribe, and he wanted the news to get out sooner. So we simply asked for the list and we got it. And again, why did no one else do that? Well, duh, because nearly 1,500 journalists and news media organizations are implicated in it. This is a list of sellouts, is what this is. It's a list of compromised media. I'm sorry, it's different. I mean, corporate welfare bums are always discreditable. Bombardier, SNC-Lavalin, all the crooked companies. That's just normal crooked, though. But the people on this list are supposed to be the watchdogs, the guardians, the ones holding the government to account. Them taking a bribe is much worse than some, I don't know, chewing gum factory taking a bribe. And the fact that they started their service to Trudeau immediately, they immediately tailored their coverage by not covering the payoff itself, shows they're fully in the tank for Trudeau. Imagine if Blacklock's hadn't broken this story last month. And imagine if we didn't file the access to information request. The other 1,500 news media companies in Canada would simply have hidden it from you. They're colluding, is my point. But really, are you surprised? They've colluded to kick out Rebel News time and again. We had to go to the federal court just last week to get access to the debates. And not only did no journalists support us getting in, other than Candace Malcolm and Andrew Lawton from True North, but when we won in court, most journalists who expressed an opinion actually denounced us. Here's a press release from Trudeau's bailout media in Quebec denouncing Rebel News, saying we should never have been allowed in to the debates. It's in French. To be clear, this is a Quebec Union of Reporters saying the federal court was wrong to have upheld freedom of the press. Now, I can see why. They're all on this list. They're all bought and paid for. And so our mere presence embarrasses them. It's why you'll never see any of them asking a real question like this one.
Bonjour, M. Trudeau. Alexandre pour Rebel News. Donc, M. Trudeau, je vais revenir rapidement sur ce qui s'est passé hier. Vous avez diabolisé l'un des rares médias qui ne reçoit pas d'argent du gouvernement. Vous avez exprimé votre opinion en disant que nous propageons la désinformation. Si c'était vrai et si c'était le cas, la Cour fédérale ne nous aurait pas permis d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je suis moi-même scientifique et je me base sur les faits. Ma question est la suivante. L'Israël est l'un des pays les plus vaccinés au monde. Ils sont rendus maintenant à leur 4e rappel de vaccin. Ils ne considèrent plus que ceux qui ont reçu 2 doses de vaccin sont pleinement vaccinés. Ma question est, plusieurs Canadiens ne désirent pas avoir un rappel de vaccin. Allez-vous leur enlever leurs privilèges reliés au passeport vaccinal? Et aurez-vous l'obligeance de répondre à ma question en tant que Premier ministre ou allez-vous encore diaboliser mon média?
J'ai partagé ma perspective sur ton organisation hier soir. J'ai plus rien à dire.
Ça démontre bien qui vous êtes. Merci.
Yeah, they hate Alexa and they hate Rebel News because we're not bought off. And by asking real questions like that, we shame them because it shows how easily bought off they are. Now, I won't go through the whole list. There are 1,500 names, which is perhaps the largest conglomeration of prostitutes outside the website OnlyFans. I'll mention just a few. I showed you Maclean's already. The biggest troffers here are, as usual, Post Media. By my count, they literally took 48 payments, the most of any company. If you're wondering why your daily newspaper is pro-Trudeau, look no further. If you're wondering why you didn't read about this payoff in your daily newspaper, look no further. They're on the take. There are weird things on the list too, like TVA. That's a TV station in Quebec, but they figured out how to game the system. They've set up publications and managed to pocket 7 figures from just this payoff round. There's a left-wing union brochure called rabble.ca. It's just a website. I call it a union brochure. Take a look for yourself. It's a forum for big labor unions. Their logos are all over it. There's Unifor, which is running attack ads against the Conservatives. That's a journalism union on the left. So, of course, Rabble got a newspaper bailout, even though they don't publish a newspaper. That's a neat trick. There's a left-wing website propped up by the Tides Foundation called the National Observer. The Tides Foundation is an anti-oil sands lobby group founded in San Francisco. They received $250,000 from Trudeau. They're only too happy to do Trudeau's dirty work for him and to attack Trudeau's rivals in dirty ways Trudeau himself likely couldn't get away with. But there are so many news companies, it's a laugh who's getting the money. I mean, you saw Stephen Guilbeault's rationale. We need these magazines and newspapers to get the important pandemic news out, or whatever he said. Have you ever seen a magazine called Nuvo, N-U-V-O magazine? It's one of those lush luxury magazines, luxury porn, $1,000 shoes, $1 million cars. private jets, all exquisitely photographed, that kind of thing. Not actually a political magazine or a news magazine at all. 261 grand for them. Because nothing says luxury lifestyle like being a beggar for Trudeau's table scraps. How déclassé. That's really embarrassing to Nouveau's brand. I see Ming Pao is on there. That's the China-based newspaper that publishes a Canadian edition. You can see Trudeau on their front page. Yeah, they got 16 grants from Trudeau, more than $1 million in this round alone. You bet they'd sell their front page for that. And Ming Pao is famous for being collaborators with the Chinese Communist Party. They're probably, they'd love pro-Beijing Trudeau anyways, but they're only too happy to take free money from him also. Maybe they thought this would be a secret. Maybe they just don't care. Now, some of it's pitiful. I get this magazine that I happen to have in my office because I'm a member of the tow truck company called the Canadian Automobile Association, the CAA. It's not a news magazine, just so you know. Like Nouveau is just some luxury shopping magazine. The CAA magazine, there's no news in this. It's all just selling the CAA's travel services. They got $400,000. That's just plain corporate welfare. I'm not even going to make the case that the CAA tow truck people are even pro-Trudeau hacks. They're just piggies at the trough getting free money if $61 million is going out the door. And in secret, why not jump in snout first? So they did. I remember the news a few years ago when an adultery website called Ashley Madison had its membership hacked. Thousands of married men who secretly signed up to meet mistresses online, their names, addresses, and details were hacked and published on the internet. There were even suicides. People who were so sure their name would be kept a secret were suddenly exposed and were so deeply ashamed in front of their families and communities. Now, look, I'm not for adultery, I'm not for hacking, and I'm definitely not for suicide. It was a terrifying moment for many men who thought that there were secrets. And a reminder, as Luke 12:3 says, whatsoever ye've spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light. Well, it's not a secret anymore, is it? Go to rebelinvestigates.com and read through the list of nearly 1,500 media organizations who thought they could keep a secret. And indeed, they kept the secret. They did. Were it not for the good work of Blacklocks and then our own access to information researchers, go through the list and realize, and remember, these people are not news media. They do not tell you the whole story. They do not tell you the other side of the story. And when they themselves are part of the story, in a disreputable way, they will hide the truth from you. And you know, they almost got away with it. Go read the shameful list at rebelinvestigates.com. And if you think our access to information researcher did a good job, please leave a tip at the tip jar. We spend thousands of dollars a year on research like this. And unlike these 1,500 prostitutes, we'll never take a dime from Trudeau, not even in secret. I've got a list of 1,500 journalists who thought they could take a secret payment from Trudeau without having their names revealed. Well, I got the list. Go to rebelinvestigates.com to see for yourself.